Fortune Summoners: Secret of the Elemental Stone is a downloadable title on Steam's store. Produced by Lizsoft and localized into English by Andrew Dice's Carpe Fulgur, Fortune Summoners is an adorable game. Gosh, what a cute game. Kawaii! Oh god! Oh Jesus! Did that slime know I was gonna slash like that? Whoa, slow down! Why am I so slippery? And I die, and I die, and die, and I die. Welcome to Dark Souls, cute little anime sister. Fortune Summoners is a cutesy JRPG about a young girl named Arche. Not that Arche. She moves to a village called Tonkinus with her parents who plan to make a living as the new item shop, and so Arche can attend the prestigious Minato Ratis Magic School, named after the famous spellcaster herself. Along the way, Arche makes friends at her new school and goes on countless adventures with her friends, which take on the form of the core gameplay. This game's story is a little disjointed at times, but the main focus of the game seems to be more of a magical girl anime sort of story, where the main goal is chronicling the innocent days of a youth faced with adversity. It's harmless enough and it's well done. One thing that always becomes a love-or-hate mechanic in any RPG is the aspect of grinding, which is when you hit a part of the game when you're not strong enough against a boss or a tough enemy, and you have to keep killing monsters and gaining experience points on your own time to become stronger. At times when I just want to zone out and relax without thinking too much, I can enjoy grinding a few levels for half an hour or so in a game like Pokemon. Grinding in an action RPG is boring. Sure, the meat of the game is the battling, but what fun is it when it's done in such a repetitive, deliberate fashion for nothing more than a bottom line? You want the action to reflect something with purpose, not just to be mundane. We have fighting games for that. Fortune Summoners addresses the problem of grinding in some of the most clever ways I've ever seen any game address it. The entire game was built around the flow of the game with its narrative, and never once making the player think they need something to be stronger. Unlike other RPGs, where the whole point of the game is to make the player feel like they need something to be stronger in a way to artificially lengthen the experience. This is achieved through the game's high difficulty, its influence and spread of stats, and collectible items called Emblems of Heroism. Let's go over each of the three. To address the difficulty first, it can be troublesome to make an RPG hard, but the upside to achieving this is there's almost always an alternative to grinding when playing a truly hard RPG. In most games, it all comes down to dominant strategy, a game term used when a player discovers a tactic or plan they can always turn to in order to pass any obstacle in a game. In RPGs, the dominant strategy is always abusing those numbers through grinding. In Fortune Summoners, that is much easier said than done. In a game with deliberately delayed controls that prioritize strategy and timing over combos and spell items, grinding in Fortune Summoners is virtually impossible unless you've absolutely mastered the game. And in the case that you have played the game enough to master it, you know enough about the game to know how to beat bosses and you don't have to grind. It's just a feedback loop that doesn't really go anywhere. It's a game where you're fighting for your life against bats. Bats are incredibly dangerous enemies. There's no enemy easy enough for grinding, on top of the high experience caps. It's just pointless to even try grinding in the first place. It's a conscious design decision Lizsoft made. It makes the game feel much less like a video game, since you can't really dissect and exploit anything. The influence stats have in Fortune Summoners is also detrimental to the game's discouragement to grind. Most times, grinding for levels is done to raise a player's stats, which can then be used to deal more damage and take less damage from tough foes. Again, for Fortune Summoners, that's not exactly the case. To put it simply, this game favors stats from equipment over stats from characters. That's not to say stats on the characters don't exist, because they definitely do, but it's fair to say the equipment definitely gives more oomph to your attacks once you have stronger weapons. In games like Pokemon and Final Fantasy, grinding is beneficial because the raw stats make up the bulk of a character's strength. In more action-oriented RPGs like Tales, however, it's really the equipment your characters have that will influence their battle performance. This is a supplement for action RPGs. It's a way for the developer to estimate how strong a character will be at certain points in the game. In games like Pokemon, where all the power comes from the character traits, that's harder to gauge, and thus leads to imbalance. It's harder for a developer to make challenging fights when a team can be customized for 6 team members, all with varying alignments and stat spreads. Fortune Summoners annihilates all complications by making a weapon slot, an armor slot, and an equipment slot for each character. Each piece of equipment can help turn the tides of battle, but with the discouragement of grinding through equipment and difficulty pressed hard on the game, the developer is almost certain of which equipment you'll potentially have at each boss fight and at which level. The final point is in the Marks of Heroism. Ready to have your minds blown? You can collect these marks in the game, and these marks increase your max level. That's right. All those strategies you thought up, all the mastering of the mechanics, all that gold you painstakingly grinded for to get the best equipment, that's only going to take you so far if you missed all the marks. You can only get up to level 3 by the end of the game. Not only does this allow the developer to predict how many more enemies you've faced out of incentive to find these marks, but it also puts a complete halt to over-leveling. By the time you hit the first boss, the absolute highest level you can be is level 4. The developer knows for a fact that he doesn't have to make the boss strong enough to face a level 5 Archie, meaning he can strategize around the skills and special attacks you'll be armed with as well. This is a genius concept that completely silences any hope at making a hard game easier by grinding in it. You can't kill enemies easily, meaning you can't collect gold easily for new overpowered weapons, and you can't even over-level past the limits the developer specifies. These limitations set would kill any standard RPG. In an action RPG, where your battling is real-time and completely up to the skill of the player, limitations of some kind are almost required to keep the game fresh and challenging. Some would say this lack of freedom is a bad idea for a game with RPG elements. I for one think it does Fortune Summoners nothing but good. In a game trying to pride itself on difficulty and a real sense of strain, making each enemy and step in the journey feel meaningful, it makes perfect sense to limit the exploitation present in most RPGs as much as possible. It keeps the player on track, on their toes, and requires that they get good at the game rather than resorting to underhanded strategies to win. Should this be the path for every action game out there? By all means, no. For Fortune Summoners though, you have to realize the lone developer's vision to appreciate why he made the game the way he did. He wanted to make a game you could best by being the best. And that's why you've gotta play this. Thanks for watching.